Hey there, this is Laura Williams, and I want to welcome you to the Encountering You podcast. I am so glad you're here today. I've been thinking a lot lately about this tension we all carry, this deep craving we have for certainty, for knowing what's going to happen, for having guarantees that people are going to show up, that relationships will last, that nothing unexpected will derail us. And I get that. Certainty feels like safety. It feels like we can finally rest. I still do love certainty. I want to know what my children will do when they grow up. I want to know that my practice will still be thriving when I'm 65. I want the certainty that I will stay cancer-free. I want to know what's going to happen next week and even tomorrow. The day my counselor told me, Laura, we just don't know these things, I thought I was going to have a panic attack. You see, I worked hard to have certainty. The word surrender had no place in my vocabulary. That sounded nice, but just not for me. Do any of you feel like that? Like you can only have peace if you have answers? But here's the thing. After years of sitting with clients and doing my own work and diving into the research on trauma and attachment, I'm convinced that certainty is actually a substitute for what we really need. What we actually need and what we've needed since the very beginning is attunement or connection. Being seen, being understood, being responded to with care. And the more I study this, the more I realize certainty is about control. But that control really feels good. It feels like safety. And it's very difficult to give up or feel like I will survive if I don't have control. Attunement, on the other hand, is about connection. And connection is what heals us and actually what helps us. Because the reality is that as hard as we work, we will never accomplish complete control in our lives. Deep breath there. I know that's hard. Control is an illusion. And this feels scary to a lot of us. So today, I want to explore that with you. Why we cling to certainty, why it actually can't help us in the ways that we hope, and how learning attunement or connection, especially self-attunement, sets us free in a way certainty never could. So let's start with this. There is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting certainty. It's human. It's actually wired into us. When we were little, we needed predictable, consistent caregivers. We needed a sense that the world was safe enough and that someone was paying attention. These basic needs create a sense of safety that is the foundation of our sense of self. It keeps our window of tolerance open and helps us to learn to tolerate when things are uncertain. However, if you grew up in a home where parents were unpredictable, distracted, emotionally unavailable, or even just overwhelmed, your nervous system learned early. If I know what's coming, I won't get hurt. Hypervigilance becomes a way of life. Even on a small scale, when parents cannot regulate their nervous system consistently, this feels really unsafe to a child. They will look out for even the smallest things, a facial expression, the way a parent walks, a sigh, a tone of voice. These are all the ways children predict how their parents will show up. And then they change their behavior to accommodate the parent and help predict a better outcome. When we do this, we're looking to protect our sense of safety. Except what happens over time is our window of tolerance shrinks, and so we learn that we can't handle the uncertainty or the unpredictability of our parents. So as adults, we cling to certainty like it's oxygen because it's the only way that we know to feel safe. We want to predict and anticipate all the things so that we don't have to feel the discomfort of insecurity. This isn't weakness. This is adaptation. We start to develop adaptations or false selves that help us survive environments that weren't fully attuned to us. We become people pleasers, super achievers, people who play it safe and never take risks. And these are all an attempt to keep certainty around us. If we're people pleasers, then no one can ever be mad at us. If we're super successful, we'll never be broke. And if you never take risks, you never fail. It's foolproof. Certainty becomes a shield. From an attachment perspective, our earliest relationships impact our ability to rest without certainty. I am so thankful that we have amazing attachment research. From Mary Ainsworth to John Bowlby, we know that when caregivers are inconsistent, we become anxious. We're trying to seek closeness to feel safe. And when caregivers are emotionally unavailable, we might become avoidant, using distance to feel safe. Both of these attachment styles manage our uncertainty, just in opposite directions. We're trying to build predictability where it didn't exist. This wreaks havoc on a child's nervous system, and when they don't have the foundation set in the beginning, we are constantly searching for certainty. But we forget that this kind of certainty was actually about attachment, not that something bad wouldn't happen. I will often talk about this with clients. A healthy childhood does not mean the absence of hard things, or even the absence of trauma. A healthy childhood requires an attuned parent to navigate these challenges with you, especially because children have limited capacity to know how to deal with extreme stress or trauma. Two children can experience the same trauma, and what makes the difference is the presence of an attuned caregiver. Our certainty is not that bad things won't happen. It's that I will have somebody in it with me when it does. Okay, so now I'm going to geek out with you just for a minute. I think it's always important to talk about the biology behind what we're talking about. So let's talk about what's happening in your brain and your nervous system, because this part is both validating and incredibly helpful. So first, the brain actually treats uncertainty as a threat. You have an amygdala, your alarm system. Its job is to detect danger before you even think about it. And here's something wild. The amygdala reacts more strongly to uncertainty than to a guaranteed negative event. Studies from the University College in London found that people were more stressed when they might receive a shock than when they would definitely receive one. Okay, I totally agree with this. I've always been more anxious about not knowing what was going to happen versus knowing what was going to happen, even if it was bad. So your need to know is your brain trying to keep you alive. In many ways, our nervous system loves predictability. Stephen Porges describes the nervous system as constantly asking, am I safe? Am I in danger? Am I in a life threat? Your system is always scanning, what he calls neuroception, for subtle cues of danger or safety. Uncertainty automatically gets interpreted as possible danger because your system can't categorize it. I remember as a kid, the first time I realized that we weren't going to live forever. I wanted the certainty of what was next. I wanted certainty that I wasn't going to die soon, that my mom wasn't going to die. I remember panicking about the idea of heaven because it was just so uncertain. This is because the realization that I was going to die became a very possible danger to me. What every child needs in these moments is a trusted adult caregiver to help them navigate uncertainty. Attunement is what makes the possible dangers less dangerous. If you grew up with chaos, inconsistency, or emotional unpredictability, your nervous system adapted by becoming hyper-aware. So now you anticipate, you monitor, you might overread cues, you try to get answers, you try to stay one step ahead. Not because you're controlling, but because your system learned that unpredictability was unsafe. Certainty gives the brain a dopamine hit. This part surprised me when I learned it. When you get clarity, even just a little bit, your brain releases dopamine. Not because the answer is exciting, but because the uncertainty is resolved. So certainty literally chemically soothes you. But the relief is temporary, which is why we end up chasing it again and again. Attunement, being seen, known, and responded to, activates the ventral vagal system, the safe and social state of the nervous system. This state calms the amygdala, actually lowers our cortisol. It opens the prefrontal cortex. It improves emotional clarity. Attunement actually brings real, lasting regulation. Certainty just brings temporary relief. Okay, so we know certainty feels good. It feels like safety. But here's the hard truth. Certainty can't actually give us what we really need. Certainty is about outcome. Certainty says, if I can just know, I'll be okay. If I can avoid surprises, I won't feel pain. If I get the answer now, I can relax. But healing isn't about outcome. I've been thinking about what this last year of life has been like. When I received the news that I had early stage breast cancer, I had so many questions. Sure, it is nice to know that your cancer diagnosis is curable, but it didn't make the process of going through it any less difficult. What made that time frame tolerable was the relationships that got me through it. Healing is about relationship. Even if you could know the future, it wouldn't stop heartbreak. It wouldn't stop grief or change or loss. Life is still life. My best friend Ashley and I will sometimes sit after a particularly hard day and think about the pain that we and our clients go through on a daily basis. And the truth is, some days, I don't want to deal with it anymore. Life is going to have hard. There's no way around it. But even when I get into a little pit of despair about it, remembering that I am not alone is one of the ways that I've learned to cope with the pain of uncertainty. You may have noticed this. The more we chase certainty, the more anxious we become. So again, I go with the research, right? So research from Penn State on intolerance of uncertainty shows that people who obsess over predictability actually experience higher chronic stress and anxiety, not lower. Why? Because certainty requires the world and people to behave perfectly, and they won't. There are just too many variables. It's impossible to control all of them. Certainty is fragile. Attunement and connection is flexible. Attunement or relationship is the essential ingredient in building a life that can actually tolerate uncertainty. Attunement is simply this. Someone sees you, understands what's happening inside you, and responds in a way that meets your needs. It's actually the opposite of certainty. Certainty controls. Attunement connects. Attunement literally shifts us into the safe and connected state. It lets our younger parts know we're here. And when others can do it for us, it helps with a feeling of safety. Certainty can't do that. Attunement is central to all of our core areas. Being attuned helps us tolerate distress. Attunement actually tells us that we matter. Attunement or connection teaches us that our needs aren't too much and they're important. Attunement helps us feel separate and safe. And attunement also mirrors belonging at a soul level. Attunement heals what certainty tries to avoid. So, how do we repair some of this stuff, right? Attachment repair is one of the most powerful parts of healing, and it's something most of us didn't get enough of growing up. When I talk about attachment repair, I'm talking about rewiring the nervous system through repeated experiences of being seen, understood, and responded to with care. Research from Alan Shore, Dan Siegel, and Sue Johnson all point to this same truth. The brain changes in the context of safe and connected relationships. Not perfect relationships, but attuned ones. When someone is consistently present with you, especially when you're distressed, your nervous system gets the message, I'm not alone right now. And that shifts you out of survival mode. Attachment repair gives you something you didn't get reliably as a child. Someone who doesn't leave when you have feelings. Someone who repairs when there's a rupture. Someone who sees your internal world and doesn't shame you for it. Someone who responds instead of withdrawing or exploding. Gradually, your body learns connection doesn't have to collapse. John Bowlby called these internal working models, the inner templates we carry about who we are and what relationships are like. Attuned connection actually reorganizes those templates, giving you a new felt sense of safety and belonging. And here's the beautiful part. The more someone else attunes to you, the more you learn to attune to yourself. Your emotions, your needs, your longings, your boundaries. You begin responding to yourself with more kindness, more clarity, and more presence. That's attachment repair. And it's one of the deepest reasons attunement heals in a way certainty never could. So I want to pause here and name something very tender. Letting go of certainty can actually feel like grief. Certainty protected you. Certainty helped you cope. Certainty kept you from drowning. You don't have to judge it. You can thank it. It got you through difficult times when you didn't have a sense of safety. But now you're safe enough, or becoming safe enough, for something better. Attunement is what your younger self always needed. So how do we actually learn how to do this? Let's talk about how to actually practice this. So self-attunement. This is noticing and responding to your own internal world. What's happening in my body right now? What emotion is here? What do I need in this moment? How can I comfort myself instead of abandoning myself? We can also have attunement in safe relationships. Attunement might sound like, tell me what's happening inside you right now. Or, I hear you. Or, that makes sense. Or even, I'm here with you. Healthy relationships don't actually offer certainty. They offer responsiveness. And then in the therapy room, especially with the work that I do, you learn what attunement feels like. Even though there's not certainty in the therapeutic relationship, there's safety and security. Your nervous system learns, oh, this is what safety feels like. Certainty never offered that. Connection actually does. So let's make this really practical. When you want certainty from your partner or a close friend, instead of asking, are you mad? Are you sure? Tell me again. Try taking a deep breath and taking just about 90 seconds to ground yourself. You may try saying, hey, I'm feeling a little anxious and I need a little reassurance. Can we connect for just a minute? But we also want to be able to practice regulating self so that we can trust that the other person will come to us if something is wrong. How about when you're spiraling with all the what ifs? Instead of forcing answers, try asking, what does my body need right now to feel grounded? What ifs are difficult because, well, they're what ifs, right? And then when you're over functioning, instead of trying to stay ahead of everything, try, what fear am I trying to control away? This is attunement. In all three of these examples, you can also choose reparenting as a way to connect with those younger parts of you that really had no other choice but to cling to certainty. So as we're wrapping up today, if you can, just take a slow breath with me. Notice your body. Notice your shoulders. Notice your jaw. Notice your chest. Ask yourself, what am I needing right now? Maybe you need some comfort. Maybe you need rest. Maybe you need some tenderness. Let your body tell you, and then offer yourself what you're needing, even in a small way. This is the work. Thank you for being here today. I hope something in this episode let you breathe a little deeper or soften the pressure to control your world. And I hope you begin to move toward attunement, toward being with yourself in a way that's kind and grounded. You deserve that. You always deserved that. If this episode was helpful, feel free to share it with somebody who might need it. And as always, I am grateful you're here, and I'll see you next time.